everyone, welcome to this episode of Rapid Fire Real Estate investing for busy people. So today the topic is due diligence. So what is due diligence? Due diligence is the set of tasks, the steps that you have to take when you've gotten into a contract on a property and you want to make sure that this property is something you do want to buy. You want to basically turn every stone and look underneath and see what is going on with the property on many levels. So that's called the due diligence period and the due diligence method. And so what you need to know first of all with due diligence, which we've done on several properties already, including commercial and in residential, due diligence really comes in two different types. There is what we call the financial due diligence, and then there's the physical due diligence. So in this video we're going to talk about the financial side, the financial due diligence steps that you absolutely have to take before you go into a property and purchase it. And then in the next video we'll have the physical due diligence. So let's get right into the financial due diligence. Okay, so let's get into the financial due diligence. Keep in mind that this list of tasks that we make sure we go through is not an all-inclusive list, but it will give you a really good idea as to the types of things we look at for the financial aspects of a property before we purchase it. So the first and foremost, absolute first thing that we do is we absolutely do a cash flow analysis. And then what you can do is take a look at the link that we put here in the description below, which links to a video that we did specifically on how we analyze cash flow and what are the parameters we look at that go into making sure we have a positive cash flow. Keep in mind that in the cash flow analysis there are several different types of expenses that you want to think about. Aside from the typical utilities, there's the property tax, property insurance, HOA fees. There's a whole lot of different expenses that you really have to do it very methodically, just to make sure that you've captured everything you need to get the right cash flow analysis. So make sure you check out that video that we have in the link below. So that's number one of financial due diligence, is cash flow analysis. Another thing that we look at, and it's very important especially in the beginning stages, is we always read all our leases, especially if it's of course a multifamily property. You want to look at all of them. If it's a single family, look at the one lease, but you got to read through the entire lease. You got to look at the rents that are supposed to be collected, when they're supposed to be collected, what is on the utility side, as opposed to any other expenses that are covered by the tenant versus the landlord. You want to see the term of the lease. There's a lot of details in there. You want to make sure you read through all of the leases as you're going through this. Another thing in the financial due diligence, let me put it right here, is related to the leases. One thing you want to establish is you want to be able to get what are called estoppel letters. Now, we've never heard of these before until we purchased our first multifamily. And what an estoppel letter is it is a legal letter that is signed by your tenant that basically states that they are a valid tenant, that they've been living there, that this is what their name is, this is the exact address they're living in on that property, how long they've been living there, could be in that letter, but more specifically what the rent is, and if they have any outstanding balance on the rent. It is a way for you to have a good idea of the validity of the renter that's in that property, because you don't want to be buying a property where the seller happens to put in some renters in there just before the listing, just to make it look like it's full. This is one way to mitigate that risk, is to get these estoppel letters, and you ask your agent to get them from the seller's agent. So that's a very important part of financial due diligence. When you get into the loan that you're going to be getting for the mortgage, of course, if you're not doing a cash deal, then you want to do the due diligence of shopping around for the loan. And that may sound obvious, but we've made this mistake before where we had a relationship with one banker, and we basically said, well, you know what, we're going to go with that loan with that banker, and we figure this is probably a good deal. When in retrospect, we probably should have shopped around and at least asked for 2 or 3 more quotes. So we'll have plenty of other videos in this channel when it comes to getting a mortgage, getting a loan on a property. But one of the key points is you definitely want to shop around. Okay, the next item for financial due diligence that we tend to follow when we purchase properties, item number 5 is, just like you shop around for the loan, we also shop around for the property insurance. The insurance rates can be quite variable depending on the property that you're looking at, and we have found that we definitely want to look at least 2 or 3, maybe even more options of insurance, and try to negotiate between the different insurers to try to get the best deal. You also want to be able to throw in information to the insurers when you're getting their quote. For example, if the house or multifamily has a brand new roof, then that should really help in getting you a better insurance rate. That's just one example. So definitely shopping around for insurance is key for the financial due diligence when you're about to purchase a property. The next thing you also want to look at is you want to get a really good idea about the property management of the property. First of all, does it have a property manager on staff, or hired, or contracted with, or was the seller managing the property themselves? Part of the importance of this is that it plays into of course, your cash flow analysis, because you want to keep in mind the seller may not have had a property manager that they've hired, but you may want to for whatever reason, and so that's an additional and rather significant expense that you have to consider when you own the property. So that's part of the financial due diligence is are you going to get your own versus are you going to manage it yourself? And if you are going to get your own, you can start shopping around for those rates as well. So the next item after that is what I like to call the financial documents, or the financial documents from the seller. And there are several types of documents that you can get from them as part of the due diligence. One is what we call the rent roll. If you're getting a multifamily, it tells you how many how many units are occupied, and even the names of the tenants, and when their leases started, when their leases will end, how much they're paying in rent, and also in other fees like how much are they paying in laundry service versus storage or pet deposits, overall security deposits. You get all that in a rent roll, and you ideally want to get that. Some sellers that we have dealt with have either had a great looking spreadsheet or the equivalent of writing it down on a napkin. We've seen quite a variety. So you want to get some type of rent roll. Another item that you want to see if you can get is you want to get some bank statement or statements from the seller to look at some of the amounts that are being deposited monthly and how those amounts are correlating with the what it says on the rent roll. You want to make sure that those are matching up pretty well, knowing that there's going to be some variability because of vacancies and all that, but in general you want to see some consistency there. If you're able to, you can also see if you could get some tax returns from the seller that relate specifically to the property. So that's another way of getting a really good idea of what the revenue is going to be on this property. You also want to have an idea of the actual security deposits that are being held by the seller, by the landlord, the current seller. You want to know what that what those volumes are, what the amounts are, and how many tenants actually have a secure deposit on hand there. You also want to be looking at a lot of the utilities bills and property tax bills as well. So I'm going to write it there, property prop tax. If you can get an idea of those bills on a monthly basis, at least for several months worth prior to this purchase, you'll have a much better idea of what you're getting into. Again, that's all part of the financial due diligence. The items that you see here, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be quite variable as to how much you're going to get. You just want to ask for these and talk to the agent that you're working with, and they may have some other ideas of other documents that the seller may already have put together in a package, and so that could be very useful. So when you take all of these 7 items that we reviewed, these are what we like to follow as the financial due diligence. And if you look at the next video, you'll see that this is only one half of it. The other half is the physical due diligence, which we'll go over in the next video. And go ahead and give us a comment for this one. If you like the video, go ahead and give us a like, and definitely subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.